Imagine if you have your vision as the car with the right team. Imagine how quick that vision will come into the footsteps. Something that was taking 5 years, 6, 3 months.
This morning is all about leadership and influence.
Good morning everybody. This is the Insights Show with your host Hendricks here and my co-host here, Pastor Beiling. This is a wonderful day, and we are busy with the month of evangelism. As a matter of fact, we are doing it since September, and we are really cultivating different types of evangelism. And this morning we have a guest in our studio that's really good at evangelism, working more with schools and youngsters, and that's where the future lies. And South Africa has one of the highest rates of teenage pregnancy globally. We're sitting, if you consider, out of every 4 kids, 1 will be pregnant. So in essence, if you take a class of 20, your chances are that out of that class, 4 kids will be pregnant for that year in that class. So the stats are really scary, and we now more than ever see the importance. They say in South Africa 9% of all teenagers' deaths are in suicide. So many youngsters commit suicide in their lives, and this ministry of school, the school ministry is like so vital. If you don't have one in your church, and this is a good morning to tune in, because I tell you, one person cannot do everything. You might be somewhere in Freiburg or Kuruman or Katu, or you might be in the Western Cape, you might be KwaZulu-Natal, wherever it is, the more the merrier. And we have somebody here that has such a lot of experience around schools. So 50% of South African teachers are abused by pupils. Unbelievable. It just go on and on and on. The opening statement for this morning: it is easier to build strong children than to repair broken man, by Albert Camus. Jesus said, "Let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these." Well, just a few photos I want to show you about our guest this morning, how he's involved with schools. We're going to ask him shortly as we go back to those pictures, just to see exactly where did that happen, and he will of course share a little. But before we venture into the guest, I just want to introduce my co-host again to you, and he knows the drill by now.
Good morning, Doc, and good morning to all our viewers. Thank you so much again for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to like and share, especially this program. We need all the parents to log on, all the youth. This program is going to be so important. And then don't forget to click the notification, so when the programs do come up, you get a notification on your phone. Doc, we ready for this one?
Time to introduce our guest.
All right, so we got a very interesting and exciting guest, and so I'm going to throw it out there, and it's really an open question. Who is Pastor Shaun Oliver? Thank you, sir.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, again, thank you so much for having me. It is a privilege and an honor to be here. Dr. Cole, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Pastor Sherwin. And thank you so much to the listeners for tuning in and for watching. Okay, so who is Shaun Oliver? Basically, I'm a child of God with a love for his people, and particularly for the children. So when I was in Bible school, I did go through the 3 years at Rhema, and I remember that God spoke to me and he said to me, "Shaun, your pulpit is the classroom." And since then, my focus has been on the classroom. In fact, I left Bible school and I went into teaching. I was a full-time school teacher for about 12 years, working a couple of the schools around here. I spent about 3 years over at Florida Primary School as well, just a stone's throw away from here. And whenever I was in the schools, what happened was that I would be the teacher who ended up doing the assemblies and so forth. And actually the principal and everyone would come in, "You've missed your calling. But God was speaking to me, and I developed such a deep love for the children. I remember being in Bible school, and in Bible school, we all have this dream, or at least I did, of being the next Reinhard Bonnke, and doing the big crusades and all this stuff. And I remember that there was a point where I was working in a classroom, and I said to God, "You know what? If this is where you want me to be forever, I'll be there. This is my place, and so it was just a deep love that was developed. And then more specifically onto leaving school and getting into leaving full-time teaching and getting into actually just, speaking in schools. I was actually driving. It's quite a sad story. I was on my way to school as a teacher, and I drove past an accident scene where a young child had been knocked down. And I just felt God speak to me. And he said to me, Shaun, how many more children need to be knocked down emotionally until you pursue what I've called you to? And so my whole focus is to try and help kids cope with some of the stuff that they're dealing with wherever possible. And so that there is me. And God has been gracious. God has been good. And God has, I think, equipped me for the season. And so what we're finding is that schools call me in, and then they keep on calling me back, and there's this wonderful open door and relationship which develops.
I must just admit, it's an admirable career. I tell you, personally, I don't think I'm cut for that. But because you need to be from a specific cloth, you must have the heart for it. I guess that's why your peers were telling you're in the wrong calling. But tell me a little about your salvation. How did that happen?
My salvation personally. So I'm a church boy as well. Just grew up in the church. And at the age of about 15 years old myself, I was at a Rodney Howard Brown crusade way back in the days. Well, not so long ago, but when he was coming in the 90s, and there was this call made. And even though I went to a Christian primary school and I was involved in church, I would say that was my salvation moment at about the age of 15. And from there, it was just this radical movement towards God. And so I do believe, because of that, that if we can get to our kids at the age of 13, 14, 15 years old, we can keep them from a lot of the messes that we tend to make at the age of 15, 16, 17.
Incredible.
So, Pastor Shaun, obviously you've taken a very different approach, not a religious approach, or a traditional approach in school evangelism. What keeps you ticking? What keeps you driving? Especially your decision to get involved in the schools specifically?
Okay, so I think that it definitely comes down to, I grew up in, a Christian home environment and so forth, and church and all of that type of thing. But there was still a lot of stuff emotionally that wasn't dealt with. And I think that many times what happens is that we have people who, have said the salvation prayer and, all that stuff, but there hasn't been that deep inner healing. And what I find is that so many times that actually affects your walk with God and your discipleship journey. Right. And many times, we kind of miss that. And so in trying to reach the youth, and what keeps me going is I know that their salvation and the only answer is in Jesus, but I also know that many times, because of the baggage that they're carrying, they don't get to that.
I'm going to ask our studio just to get into the pictures quickly, and then just talk me through the picture on the left there. There's some youngsters. It's so exciting to see you involved with youngsters, because it's an eternal, lifelong. It's internal at the end of the journey of life, but it's a lifelong investment, and that's how good it is. So on the left, which school was that?
So this was Santon Group School over in Santon, and that there was really stunning school. Yeah.
In the one on the right there?
The one on the right is Rodin, which I was just at recently. It's a beautiful school. If you guys know it, 120-year heritage, and that there is an all-girls school, and it was
fantastic. What was your message there in that blue suit?
In the blue suit, yes. In the blue suit, the message was stronger, and it's a message that I've put together, and I'm taking to schools across the country. Can I go in for a minute just into what? Okay, so basically, when COVID stopped, I had schools contacting me. In the first term of 2021, I had 4 schools contact me with suicide or attempted suicide. I'm talking about primary school and high school. And what we found, and once something like that happens in a school, teachers start asking the kids, and I would have schools contact me, and we'd find out that about 70 to 80% of kids in our schools are depressed, and this is now they shouldn't be because we think it's all done, but it's not because the emotional hurt is there. And so God gave me a message called Stronger, and it's all about the cup. And I've been taking this message around, and it really, really sticks with the kids. And in Stronger, basically what I talk about is the fact that, I compare our hearts to a cup that's constantly been filled. And what happens is that, if you put coffee into this cup and you bump into me, coffee's going to come out. If you put Coke into this cup and you bump, Coke's going to come out. And if you put pain into someone and you bump into them, pain is going to come out. Rejection's going to come out. Whatever's in the cup must come out. And so many times what we're doing is when we're dealing with our children, we are saying to them, behave, behave, behave. And so when I go into schools, I actually say, and when I do parenting workshops, I say, okay, so we're saying behave. Let's break it down into its syllables. In the 2 syllables, it's behave. And so you can only truly behave. You can only be what you have in this cup, and so we talk about the cup and where's the biblical link? Well, you know what, Jesus, the scriptures talk about this cup. It talks about how God is the one who's able to fill our cup to overflowing. But so many times what we do is that, and so basically what I do is when I go in a parable-like fashion, in those particular schools there, I was talking about the fact that we need to guard our heart. We need to guard our cup because out of it flows the issues of life.
And are they sensitive towards Jesus? I know schools are very sensitive towards the Bible, Jesus, and prayer. So the principal or whoever invites you to a school, do they know that you are a pastor and that you carry the message of Jesus Christ? What is your technique and your tool, for instance, that all-girls school?
Okay, so most schools, with the exception of a few, most schools cannot bring a Christian message to the kids. I've even had principals who I've got good relationship with. They said to me, Shaun, I'm so sorry, but we can't even say the Our Father prayer because we'll get into trouble with the powers that be. And so what I do is that I kind of do go in almost in an undercover fashion. I never introduce myself to the kids as I'm Pastor Shaun, etc. I'm Shaun Oliver. I'm a youth motivational speaker, and I go in and then I expound on kingdom principles, and I build that relationship, and you'll see even my t-shirt, I go in with this t-shirt, Let There Be Light. It was the first communication from God to mankind, or even to the universe, is let there be light. And so I do try by God's grace to put in, to kind of sow a seed. I'm kind of going for the long game, but what I do find is that then schools call me again and again. And then, for instance, last month we had a situation at a primary school where a child had suddenly passed away. They were playing that springtime game and he fell and he hit his head. And do you know who the school calls first? They call me. And so then there's that openness to the gospel, but it wasn't knocking the doors down and I'm going to come in. We build rapport, we build relationship. And then from there, you are able to.
That is so admirable. Before we move on, there's another picture there of a graduation. That's on your Facebook.
Yes.
So
yeah.
What happened there?
Well, this I guess is the other part of my life. Is that is actually my son. He's 13 years old there. He's in grade 7, and he was receiving an award as one of the top natural science students. In the province, which I'm really, really proud of. So I'm a dad myself.
There's a proud dad. Project 30.
So one of the things that, before we get there, I think it's important for the viewers to understand Pastor Shaun and what the school's are actually saying. And before we get into that, Springs Boys High School says that the learners enjoy his message and participate eagerly. Then you get Franklin Roosevelt Primary, very relevant in terms of the message and the delivery of, which is excellently well done. And then Cliff Primary School says the practical demonstration enhances the talk. The interactive approach maintains enthusiasm throughout the talk. So this is important. But Pastor Shaun, you said something specific, and I think it's something that I've experienced, even being as a senior pastor. And the general approach from many pastors going into schools is, but you should never compromise your stand in preaching the gospel. But yet you have been very creative, and your approach has been very different, considering that we are living in a secular society where all religions have been embracive. in terms of pluralism. And so you find in most schools would not even encourage prayers to be done in school, the Bible to be done in school, not even religious studies anymore. I remember we used to have that, but it's completely done away with. And someone is watching over here, and a pastor or someone as a viewer says, but we should take a stand. You should not compromise the gospel. But yet you've been very skillful. You haven't been out there, but you've been very subtle, but yet been very deliberate. Can you talk to us a little bit of how important that is? Because are the schools even open for evangelism? And if not, how creative do we really need to be? Especially reaching in this generation, Doc, which is so important, because the devil seems to be having a grip on our young generation and really messing them up mentally, psychologically, emotionally, and even physically.
Yeah. No, it's the truth. And so, look, my approach to evangelism is Jesus said that we are to be fishers of men. He didn't say we were to be hunters. So a fisherman puts out, I'm not a fisherman myself, I could stand correct, but I'm pretty sure that you put out your bait, and it's got to be an attractive bait to the fish. You can't just put out any bait to reach any type of fish. You put out that bait, and then there's a patience, there's a waiting, And so that is my approach, is that this is a bait that I'm putting out. I'm not shooting them down. I'm putting that bait out, and let me tell you what they do take. So I get messages on my Facebook. In fact, last month it was so amazing. I had a girl from South Korea who she remembers my talks from when she was in high school, and now she's teaching over there, and she wanted to sow a seed into my life. I was just absolutely amazed by that, because these talks are making a difference, because death and life are in the power of the tongue. And so what we do is that when we go in and we speak, we try to make it fun, we try to make it interactive. We never, and this is just one of the most practical tips that I can give anyone who's ever going to approach a school, never, ever go over time. If it's 15 minutes, go 15 minutes, because they will shut you down. Yeah.
Has this been the success in your 13 years of impacting educators, parents, kids? And you say over 300,000 learners and educators and parents. Has that been your main strategy in the success that has brought you to where you are right now?
Yes, I would say that. So our messages are very interactive. They're lots of fun. You can see there that particular picture that's on the right there. I was teaching kids about foundations, and we literally so to do that I had an icebreaker, and basically what I done is that I had the kids against each other. I split the hall into two just as they were sitting in the assembly, and then I let the smaller group build a tower like this. The other group, I said, you've got to start with the foundation of only one, and you've got to build it up. And so these big grade 7s thought they're going to beat the grade 3s, and they couldn't, because it kept them falling down. And so I would use something simple like that to break the ice for 5 minutes, and then I've got another 10 minutes of teaching about what could be good foundations, respect, and so forth. And then I also showed them that if I want to go higher in my life, I've got to put down a bigger foundation. I've got to go back to those foundations. I've got a message where I've got, I go with cake, and I ask who wants to eat cake. And obviously all the kids, they throw their hands up, but yes, we want to have some cake. And then when the 3 volunteers come up, I give them flour, and I give them raw eggs, and I give them, and then I say to them, so you wanted the final product. You didn't want the process. And I use that to show them how life is made up of good days and bad days. So I would think that the main source of my success that I've been able to, and I see it in Jesus' ministry. Jesus did quote from the Torah when he was in the temple, but when he was speaking to the masses, he was talking about sheep, and he was talking about, grapes, and, stuff that people could relate to. And this is basically what I do. I make it relatable.
Eventually, how do you get then to a point, if you call it evangelism? So you evangelize. How do you get them to a point? I know that you sow the seed at some point. How do you just trust that somehow on their walk that they will bump into a preacher, a church, a tele show, a television preacher, evangelist? How do you get them to that point of commitment to receive Jesus Christ as Lord, as personal Savior, because otherwise it just stays with motivation.
Yes, yeah. So what we do is that then we link it to what we call a truth event. And with a truth event, that is, but now you've built relationship with the schools, and then you can say to them, we'd like to do an event at your school where, for instance, on a Friday afternoon, we can do a soccer tournament. We're going to have some Christian house music playing, and then we're going to have games, just involve the whole Christian community, come and volunteer, come and help us. Just play games, just have fun with the kids, just laugh with them, And then from there, what we do is that at prize giving, now everyone is there because we've had a little bit of a mini soccer tournament, we've had games, we've got a lot of, gifts to give out, etc. And then at that point, you're able to, give the unadulterated message of the gospel and, allow people to make that decision.
It's all about technique. And I admire that because last week, Pastor Sherwin, we discussed all the methods of evangelism.
That's right.
And today we're talking about school evangelism. So you can really not go in there. And I must say, I just admire for what you do and how you do it, because the temptation is there to slip Jesus in. You're a pastor and anything, but you have to so cognitive and mindful about your platform and where you are with time and whatever you do. That is really, really commendable. So a little about trainings. We notice that you do EQ courses, parents workshops, educator training, SRC, LRC, leadership courses. And what is the aim of these courses?
Okay, so that there is now further reinforcement, but also going a little bit deeper. So in 15 to 30 minutes at an assembly, I can only touch the surface. And so with the EQ courses, what we'll do is that I'll spend about 4 hours with a smaller group of kids, and then we can really talk about things like, how to regulate your emotions. I mean, it's something that our kids struggle with, our parents.
That's true.
And yet, if you teach them, so then I'll take them into teaching on the brain and the different parts of the brain and how to properly regulate themselves, etc. How to, in a practical way, how to deal with bullying. It's one thing as parents to say, just ignore it, or we tell them to fight back, etc. But there's certain things that you can actually do to successfully overcome that. Within the parenting workshops, I'll again, about 2 or 3 hours, we'll sit together and we'll deal with things that parents deal with. A lot of parents, if I can give just one very practical example, some of our kids are addicted to being shouted at. They love being shouted at. And parents don't even realize why do they, it's like this child is always in trouble, etc. But a lot of our parents live their lives on their phones. And so, or busy at work, and so the child doesn't get attention. And then what will happen is that the minute you're going to shout your child, guess what? Think of the body language. You put your stuff down. You look at that child. You give them all of the attention, and you shout at them. And some children, for instance, they actually do that because they want that attention. And so what happens is that through practical ways, you can teach your parents, your children, how to, overcome a lot of the stuff that we're dealing with is emotional baggage, pain, etc. And then I also do, obviously, when it comes to educator training, because educators, again, remember the illustration of that spill of the cup. Unfortunately, many times our educators, there's all this toxicity of about 35 different homes, up to 40 different homes, that's been spilled on them all the time as they're trying to teach. And many times our educators are completely worn out. And at that stage, they don't need a corporate intervention. They need another teacher who understands.
I do agree. And you know why I think you're so successful? And it doesn't mean that you must be a school teacher in order to obtain or do what you do. But there's an angle that you do understand of youngsters.
Yeah.
And you really know how to get to them. And the practicality is really the thing. That sticks with me because I enjoy practical preaching. That's the power of it. I wonder, I'm just want to hear from Clayton in our control room if we have that video ready. We might not be able to see it here for ourselves in the studio, but we're going to play it on that side. And just give me a thumbs up before you play it. This is the video that's on your Facebook. It's the one where you're talking about the giants. Yes. So we're just going to play it to the listeners for a while. He'll give me thumbs up to say that he's just done, and then we continue again. Thank you so much.
When David went in, he ended up making history. He didn't go to make history. He went because he had to do his chores. That's important for us to remember. Okay? Because sometimes what we want to do is we want to skip over those points in our lives. How many of you enjoy doing the dishes? Okay, there's about 3 of us. The reality is, ladies and gentlemen, life is not lived in this one moment when you start trending. It's not lived in this one moment when all of a sudden you go viral. Life is lived in the everyday consistencies. And all that David was doing when he ended up on the battlefield facing the giant is he was being obedient to his dad.
So, what a wonderful video. I watched this clip, and thank you so much, viewers. I trust that you enjoy that. Talk to us about this method that you use here. And where was this? Because here you technically use a text there.
Yes.
And it's another technique. So what happened there?
Okay, so that was my second visit to this particular high school. It is a government high school, so I'll just say it's in Alberton side. I can't really, because I don't want them to get into any trouble with the department, but they actually give me the go-ahead. Okay. So again, where school gives you the go-ahead to teach from the Bible, go for it, but don't assume, But what happened is in that text, again, I believe that, again, and I'm sure like we all believe, the Bible has got the answers. So parenting should be coming from the Bible. And, and even here, what I've done is, it's a text about David and Goliath, which we've heard so many times before. But when I read it from my parenting and youth development point of view, I see the fact that, David was doing his chores, when he went onto the battlefield. And many parents today don't even give their children chores, and so it's things like that. I don't know which part of the clip that was, but later on in the clip, I also show how did David build his self-esteem? His self-esteem wasn't built.
No, you know what I like about the clip? Let me tell you. You say his chores got him to get it, because then you kind of just explain that to
yes, and so basically I make it completely relatable to where they are at, and even to because it was in doing the small things. Because many times we've developed a society where our children, they actually call them the snowflake generation. They're pretty to look like, but the minute you touch them, they crumble. And so as parents,
are you serious? Do they call them that?
Yes, sociologists and psychologists have termed adults the snowflake generation.
It looks as if they're strong, but they're not strong.
Yeah, they're all pretty. All they do is take photos of themselves, selfies,
But it's true. That's where we are.
They crumble under the pressure.
They melt away.
Yes, and the thing is that where do they get the strength from? Where our strength comes from.
Can I tell you what I like about that sermon, just to get back to that sermon? What I like about that sermon is that you were telling them that David didn't rock up there.
Yes. For
fame and fortune,
Yes.
or even for his victory, or even to overpower. His chores got him there.
Yeah.
And then you place it in chunks.
Yes.
It's what you do on a daily basis that will get you there.
Yes.
But you use the text to help them. On the training, we just did the EQ course. Talk to me about parental workshops, because I think that's a massive need. And I think we should speak to our children's department and see if we can bring the parents together.
That would be amazing.
And just educate them, because parents don't know what to do. That's the long and the short. And the negative side of the parents, they themselves were not schooled in Christianity. They received Christ when they were 30, 40. So they don't, the foundations are gone. They don't even know how to
Exactly. And even with myself, as a parent, I find myself in 3 worlds in one go. My daughter's in high school.
Sure.
My son is towards the end of primary school, and my youngest is to the end of nursery school. So I'm experiencing all 3 at once.
Oh my word!
Sure.
And the thing is,
and you also see the gaps in between.
Massive gaps
from high school to
nursery school. It's massive gaps. But one of the things that you have said, and it's going to go back to the question that Doc deals with in terms of parenting. Because obviously we know that South Africa is a secular state, and so the content of what has been taught in the schools is not your religious content, and it opens up our kids to a different level of thinking ideology. So, for example, my son, and I may have said it some time ago, my son received a reading book, and in the reading book, he promoted the Sankoma and getting powers from a Sankoma in order for a grandson to become a brilliant soccer player. My son brings this book home, and my son says, "Dad, I'm not too comfortable reading this book." In my mind, as a Christian, this promotes something that goes contradictory to what I believe. How in tune and informed and trained do parents need to be in their number one day-to-day activity with the kids in what the kids have been taught in schools, and how do they navigate the kids managing through that, but not compromising what we believe in terms of our Christian principles and foundations?
It's awesome. Well, I think that, the word that you use there, training, is extremely important. It's like key. Because, oftentimes within within environments in general, you think that, for instance, training is beating. So for instance, I must train you up in the way you should go, so I'm going to hit you now. But imagine if you go to a new job and they say that this is the training, and they put you in front of the computer and then they don't tell you anything, and then you press something and they hit you over the head. That's beating. That's not training. Training is, this is how it's supposed to happen. Then you try, then you mess up, then we show you again, and you keep on training, and that's a lot more work than beating. And so for parents, the training should be ongoing. It's a 7 day a week. We see we read the book. Oh, there's something about a sangoma. Well, let me tell you what the Bible says. Or there's something, because our kids are overexposed to when we grew up, we didn't have exposure to the entire world. It was the community. Our kids are so exposed to so many different belief systems via TikTok, via social media, and they take in, again, it's going into this cup. It's going in and it's filling them. And so what we've got to do is that as the parent, we've got to almost check what's going in through their eyes and through their ears and what's happening. And when we see something that is incorrect, we should be the ones who are going to fill them with the Bible. The scripture says in Joshua, it talks about how, you put it before your eyes. Now imagine if, because it makes a difference to our spirit and our soul and our destiny. Now imagine if all that they're putting in front of their eyes is the stuff that's on TikTok.
What you're talking is so eye-opening for so many people, in the sense that when you look at evangelism, school evangelism, people think you just put two speakers up and shout to the kids. No. But the technique is so important, specifically in the 21st century. How is it that schools call you in for SRCs and LRC courses?
So what we do with that is that, again, it's a lot of biblical principles, but we teach leadership, biblically based leadership, but again, using just, everyday examples and so forth. And so I'll go in and I'll spend about 4 hours. When I was a teacher, I was the guy who was organizing the prefects and stuff, and I saw that oftentimes schools would call in a corporate supplier, but then they teaching the kids to think outside the box. But in a school setting, you don't need kids to think outside the box. You need to teach them that when they're on break time duty at the toilet, they must be there. So we tried to make it very practical. You need to teach them how to talk to kids without shouting kids, how to be assertive without being aggressive, how to handle conflict without getting caught up in the gossip of this one and that one. And so we do that, and it's really, really successful.
Do you train, just my last one, Pastor Sherwin, on training, do you train leaders per se? How to go out to schools, how to approach the schools, what to say, what not to say. Did you ever design a curriculum or a course on that?
I would absolutely love to, but my focus has always been so much in the classroom that I'm kind of an unknown in church circles. Honestly, I'm just.
Why I'm saying that is that you can duplicate yourself.
Yes.
And you can multiply the process, not necessary because. You can't just be at one place at a time. So if you look at Jesus Christ, he had to go and prepare a place. But then in return, he sends the Holy Spirit to abide and to be with us. So like the three of us can do different things at different times based on the Holy Spirit being with us. So I would love at some point again, hear from you that you did a whole curriculum, like a day training, for instance. Don't need to be just take what you have. It's already there. Just put it on paper, maybe 20, 25 pages, and then we arrange something, and churches arrange something. It's a new dynamic add on to your ministry, where people invite you to come and speak to parents. Another time they invite you to come and address leaders to have an understanding about how school ministry works and so on. It's really a very, very interesting ministry.
And I agree 100%. I think it's a need. I mean, over the years of pastoring, I can't even remember how many parents I had to counsel with dealing with kids in schools that either dropouts, who've been bullied, teenage pregnancy, on drugs. And I find that it's either the parents are not equipped, the kids are so derailed, or the schools are not even equipped to handle this. And I think that training is really going to position the church strategically, and even parents and the kids, on how we can navigate the pressures of society right now. But I want to just mention 3 or 2 headlines, and I want your thoughts on it. And I think it's going to be very deliberate in this question. The Mail and Guardian headlined in April 2023, South African children's grim prospects in a failing education system. Okay. Then the Business Tech headlined in March 2023, the school state of education, the shocking state of education in South Africa. Pastor Shaun, what's your response to these headlines, and do you think schools have got the capacity to build strong leaders in the next generation?
I think there's amazing leaders of certain schools, and I think that there's amazing teachers who are giving it all that they've got. But I do, in my opinion, the tide is very strong. And so you've almost, if you could imagine a wave, you've got some guys who are standing their ground, but that wave of this failure is kind of hitting. I've sat with teachers where they don't know what to do next, because they also just think, and they're sitting with kids, divorce is a big one, broken families, etc., 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 and they struggle to cope, because they still have to teach 40 kids. They still have to get through a curriculum. I've sat with so many parents who at the, they'll be in tears. I just don't know what to do with this child anymore, etc. So what I've seen is that it is an overwhelming force. But the good news is that the power of God is an overwhelming power, and the Church of Jesus Christ is stronger than anything that the enemy can bring our way. And so I do believe that the answer is not in the government. The answer is in the church, and it's in us standing up and taking our rightful place. There was a guy many years ago, one of the famous saints, but I forget his name. He said this quote. It stuck with me since I was a teenager when I heard it. He said that theaters are full and churches are empty because the world tells a lie well, while the church tells the truth badly. And it always stuck with me. The fact that we've got the truth. We've just got to see how do we bring it across.
Before, I actually want to piggyback on that, and there's a question I want to ask on that. But what I want us, all our parents that are watching us, to please send in your questions. I really want this to be engaging and interactive, because I think there's some stuff that we'll deal with here this morning that could possibly help some teachers, or in the introductory phase in helping them. If the schools, or if kids are not really embracive in terms, if you say that the church tells the truth but really tells it in a bad way, how do we counterattack all of these social dynamics in terms of bullying, teenage pregnancy, suicide, drugs in schools, even teachers abusing kids and kids abusing teachers? How then do we counterattack this? What would be the necessary skills that we need, or the strategy to counterattack these things that are prevalent, that are happening in the schools right now?
Are you saying, Pastor Sherwin, through the lenses of church?
Through the lens of church, but also, let me use the lens of church, because I think that's going to be important. I don't want to complicate it.
No, I want to rephrase what you say. Okay. So I will place the question this way: are the churches doing enough in this arena?
Yes.
And what is the contributory factor from your side, adding value to the understanding of a primary and high school student?
Sure. So I think that obviously, our churches are out there trying, but we've got to be willing to be relative to where they are at right now.
Right.
I think that is the more, and relationship is so important. And relationship isn't just getting a group of people to come and listen to me, of children coming to listen to me speak for half an hour. Relationship has been at their soccer match. Relationships, I'm talking, if we're in the context of a church within a community, we've got to be there, because
involved, connect.
Yes, we've got our center now in Montclair, which was an absolute miracle. That while all of the stuff was happening happening. And in February, Becky Kele was out there in Westbury, and he was even, I think at one stage when he was interviewed, he mentioned that he's seen kids walking around with knives and so forth. During that season, when the eyes were focused on what the enemy's doing, behind the scenes, God was setting us up, and we got these houses. You know, we were given, I'm the only person I know so far I was given title deeds of houses, and they, you know, here's a center to reach the young people. So we've got our center in Montclair, where we are trying to reach the communities of Claremont, Westbury, and so forth, you know, and especially the young people. But what I'm saying is that I get frustrated because I said to someone the other day, I don't live in the area. I'm there on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, sometime in the week, whereas there are drug dens set up that are running, you know, 24/7. There's people who've got bad intentions, who are there with them all of the time. And we only, you know, there for our hour or two, and then we're gone. And so that is almost why, again, it seems overwhelming. We've got
So what's the idea of the schools? Is it rather the houses? Is it to host kids, to sleep and to be rehabilitated, or how are you doing it at this point?
Okay.
And how long do you have it?
Okay, so it's only now since Feb, and the houses were run down, and so we've been fixing them up. But basically what we're doing there is we're using that as a safe space to build relationship. And so on a Friday afternoon, we call it the Hope Club. They come in, we give them, you know, a meal, but we also give them Jesus, and we're able to just, you know, do some songs and play some games and just be with them. You know, kids learn through learning and laughing, and it's relationship. And so in an hour, I'll speak for 10 minutes, and we'll have games and we'll have things. But you know, those 10 minutes, the ground has been a thing, and now I can able to get.
So if a church wants to connect with you and partner with you, what will your expectation be for a church watching today and say, you know what, I like what you do. How can we partner?
Well, you know what, I really love that idea that you brought, Dr. Cole, about, you know, training. I mean, I would love to be able to come and train people up, because what we've got to do is so big. You know, so I think that would be so important, to just be able to kind of get people together and give them practical tips and ideas, because the heart is there.
My question is more on your houses.
Okay,
let me explain.
On the houses.
Yeah, because you say you're 2 to 3 hours there, you don't live there. What more? What is your what's the need there? How can people partner to let this thing really work? 727,
wow,
729.
If we could have volunteers, if we could have people who come in with the heart of God for those children, that would be amazing. You know, where they say we can give 2 hours a week. So what we've done is we took one of the houses and we turned it into an auditorium, a 60-seat auditorium. We've got sewing machines. The vision is that we would love to have it, and this is an organization that was running for 40 years, called Westlandse Christelike Centrum. But obviously the community has changed and so forth, you know. So we've got sewing machines, and we've got all of this stuff. And the thing is to be able to empower these young people in that community with skills that they can actually use. We need somebody to go in and teach work ethic. That's not taught in a school level, you know. And so, but again, and then again, people who can even help the kids in the afternoon with homework. When we first took over the center, and I've come to accept it now, whenever I drive up there, kids are running at Pastor Shaun, and you know, they'll run to you. On a Friday afternoon, they're lining up in the streets. Whenever I would open the gate, the kids are storming in, because there's a small playground in the yards, you know. And initially it was like, I'm trying to get some work done, and you know, the kids are all over the show. But I realized that for many of them in their homes, those houses are so built up, there's no backyards. So they're on the street, they're playing in the street. So this is a safe space for them. So now imagine if Monday to Friday, there's actually people there who can assist them with homework. We've got all of that stuff, who can let them just play in a safe environment, you know. And yeah, so volunteerism is massive.
I must just say, Pastor Shaun, you know, I think one of the mistakes, Doc, that many churches do make is that we just go in, we hit, and then we're out of there. You have obviously taken a long-term relationship with these kids rather than just a short-term engagement. And that's a mistake a lot of the churches make. They go into the schools, if the school's open, preach the gospel, and then they're out of there. There isn't that real follow-up or follow-through in terms of a long-term. You obviously have, and what I'm hearing is that you obviously have committed yourself to walk the journey with the young people. How impactful or how necessary is that, especially for this generation, considering that many of our young people have been disappointed at homes, disappointed at schools, even been hurt in churches, hurt in so many various spheres of life. How important is that long-term relationship that you really taken out to instill certain qualities and skills in these children? How important is that?
Well, I think it's got the same importance that it had in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. It's been the same thing. This is how the gang culture and the drug culture came into effect. Was that there was people who were willing to be there all the time, influencing for the bad, but they were there. And so if we are willing to give more time and to be there, and like I said, to be at the Entrepreneurs Day and to just support at the, all of a sudden they see that, hold on a second, this person is somebody that I can trust. And our kids are really trusting. And our kids are really, really looking for love. And unfortunately, the home situation many times isn't that space. And that's why they've ended up finding the embrace of the enemy instead of finding the embrace of Christ.
Again, relationships.
It's
Again,
relationships.
visibility.
Yes.
At the end. I just want to know from you, from school to school, and I'm not expecting you to mention the names because respectfully so. There are different things. In one school you find bullying more than the other school. I can imagine most your what will be the north side schools be where your girls high and who's who in the zoo that goes to school there. What will be the thing that they struggle with in comparison with the schools that's in communities again? Because I can imagine one of my friends, Bishop Musa Sono, I was there the other day at his 40th on anniversary, and he mentioned something very interesting about two kinds of kids who pray. He said one kid pray from 4 ways, so he made a joke. So they run the church there as well, but the kids in 4 ways will say, Lord, I'm praying for a burger with and then the amount of onions on and tomato and so on. And then the boy in the township just say, if you can just get a bread cut in half with something in it.
Social dynamics.
Yeah. So I can imagine the attacks from school to schools are completely different. What's your experience with all these schools and the approach? How do you know what to preach at what school, and how do you observe what's happening at the school?
Okay, so what I would do is I would just kind of tweak it a little bit for each school, but I'm finding that the main thing that has been broken down and that kids are desperately needing is that family connection, and then that there goes from the rich to the poor, and so I think that social media in a sense has been almost a leveler, so that a child in Sandton and a child in Soweto are exposed to those same influences and so forth. And so what I'm finding is that when it comes to things like depression and bullying, etc., it's in all it's across the board, but I would say that it's probably more intensified in a place where there's no support to give. So I'll give an example: 2 unnamed schools. There's a high school, one of the top Afrikaans high schools, for instance, who they've got a team of 4 educational psychologists, psychiatrists, etc. They still call me in to do talks, which I'm really, really grateful for, but they've got all of that support, and they still have kids who are depressed. And then in around March this year, I was called to a school where they had 6 attempted suicides and 4 were successful. Unfortunately, a high school, over on the far south side of the world, and there it was, there's no support. And when you drive into that community, like I wish I had a bakkie when I drove in, because it was like these huge potholes and so forth. And so I think that it's the same issues, but it's intensified because there is no psychosocial support. And so we've still got bullying, we've still got that loneliness, we've still got that depression. We've got these kids who think that money is everything, or this is everything, and it's on both sides of but it's much more intense within.
Do we have an uphill struggle? Will we ever get this thing sorted out, or is this going to be a continuous journey, us fighting, counterattacking this type of mindset, struggles from bullying, teenage pregnancy, suicide, issues going on at home? Are we in this for a long haul in terms of fighting this uphill battle?
I think that it can definitely get easier You know, I think, especially if I look at the level of brokenness, you know, the scripture speaks about how where sin abounds, grace abounds much more. And so when I see the young people, they are more desperate now than ever. I've got schools who'll call me. I'll never forget sitting with a Muslim principal, you know, and I saw, because again, I go in like this, and I normally, my cross broke the other day, but I normally have a cross on. And I saw her looking at my cross, and I said, ma'am, when I bring a talk, it's not on a religion. And she said to me, I'll never forget, she said these words. She said, we don't care what religion, as long as you come and you help us.
Okay.
You know, and so that is the view right now. And so I think that if the church takes this opportunity, but again, I think that we've got to be willing to relook and to almost pioneer a new way forward when it comes to reaching our young people. So for instance, somebody like me, I've been on the outskirts of church circles. I love the church, but I've been on, because I couldn't really find my place, because you know, I'm with the kids, you know, that is my focus. And so a lot of people would rather, they don't so much want to be there because you're not going to be known here.
Yeah, but the ministry should go in that direction, because the other day we had a training with a person by the name of Ron Luce, and he was talking about Project 13, showing how other religions go for the kids between, all right, but 13 is your bridge.
Yeah.
The investment in how you catch a child between 12 and 13 and tune them in a specific direction, because there's a window period. And I must just admit, churches are not doing enough, including our church, to focus. That's why we did that training. We are now busy with Project 13. We're going to launch something specifically. That's why I know you're going to play a vital role in helping us, in training us, and equipping us, because we should know what's the way forward for schools and for school ministry in our church and evangelism. And people are watching now, and they are, the idea of the program is to bring awareness. The idea of the program is to say, look, the technique that we used to use back in the day,
It's not working.
it's not working. The kids are so exposed to so many things. Your techniques, give me, besides we were on the schools a lot, we were on, you go with a motivational aspect, you use the t-shirt, let there be light, different things that you use. On multimedia platforms, what do you use there?
Okay, I'm bad at multimedia,
Oh.
but I should.
I thought he's gonna say, you know what? Because I know the kids are on TikTok, and this is the technique I use, and this is that. But I think now we've learned also from this guy Ron Luce that's the way to go. And I must just admit, we need to do more. Like in our church as well, I need to get at least once a week something on TikTok, even if it's something short, motivational, because some kid will stumble over it.
Yes, yeah. And TikTok has got such huge influence. I'll never forget counseling a kid who just post COVID, you know, because I also do school counseling and so forth, and he decided that he is now coming out, you know, as homosexual and so forth. And I asked him where did it come from, and he said that over the school holidays, during the lockdown, he was on TikTok, and he was seeing all of these, and he realized that this is who he is, and this isn't who he is, you know. And so it's got such a huge impact on a child's life, TikTok. So what we've done is I've put together a video series that talks about purpose, and I'm about to launch it onto YouTube. And it took me ages because I tried to work in animation and because also what's happening is that you can't even put together a 5-minute message. It's got to be a 50 second or 30 second, or else you've lost them again. But we should be. So what I do is I direct the kids. I tell them, if you wanna connect with me, get me on Facebook and TikTok. And I'm still hoping for the day that I'm actually committed to Facebook, to Facebook and TikTok, because I know that they find me there, but I don't have content.
They're more on TikTok than Facebook.
Yes, TikTok is the thing.
No, kids are not on Facebook.
No.
No.
They say
on
it's
TikTok.
old-fashioned now.
Do you know? My sister was just visiting with her grandchild over the weekend from Potchefstroom, and this lady is so young. I guess he's 3 years old, but the way he goes through TikTok, it's just like, how do you do that?
Yeah.
And he gets irritated if something is too long, then he swipes, and then he swipes, and it is swiped. Their brains are so developed.
Yeah.
I think we are losing out in many ways reaching these kids, you know,
Yeah.
in different areas.
And even YouTube has developed a strategy where they have YouTube Shorts.
Yes, yeah.
So my son who is only 5 just watches the YouTube shorts, and it's like a few seconds, and he moves into the next one. And so it's the ability to capture the, and when I'm watching that doc, and a lot of the stuff is just your normal programs and stuff, but it's quick. They are so deliberate, they're so skillful, and then they craft and how they get the message within a couple of seconds.
Yeah.
And then I'll ask Tyler, so what did you watch? And he's able to tell me exactly everything and the content. A 5-year-old, because they're so skillful, or the content producer so skillful. And I think that's where the church continues to lack. We are not creative enough, and hence this is an opportunity for the church to sit back and say, you know what, we've got some work to do. We have to, especially when we're dealing with the Generation Z and those that follow after. Because if we want to get them, we've got to be more creative. And as much as the gospel stays the same, but the methodology will need to change. That's going to be so important.
Very, very important. I'd love you to use one of your sermons, if you don't mind. It doesn't matter which one. You can pick anyone, and give us a typical idea, looking into that camera, and give us a typical idea on right from how you greet the kids, then you get into the sermon as if you're there, and you don't have 15 minutes here. You've got less, but just hit it so that somebody watching out there might just play this for the kids, or we learn a little more about what technique you use when you get to school.
Okay.
So what I want you to do is forget about the two of us and just hit that camera as if the students are right in front of you, and then you go for it.
Awesome. Well, let's go back to this cup over here, right? And where this lesson comes from is I was sitting with my kids the other day, and we were just having breakfast together, and I looked at my children, and I saw something in them. They all looked like cups to me, right? And ever since I've had that moment, what I do is whenever I see people, I see cups. Now, everyone is a different shape, a different form. Some are coffee mugs, and some are, those fancy wine glasses. Some are short, like those little shot glasses, Some look all rough, like a tumbler, those plastic glasses that we give to our kids. But we all are like cups. Let me tell you why we are like cups. Because when I want to put coffee into this cup, it goes in at the top, it stops here, and it fills up. Now, in the same way, what happens is that every single day we take in things in. It comes in, it stops, and it fills up. So who's ever had that day as you watch? Who's ever had that day when you wake up and you're just feeling all cute? Like today's going to be the day, the hair's right, the pimples are gone, you are ready to go. And as you get to school or as you get to your workplace, you bump into that person. We all have that person in our lives. That person where you just thought that you made your hair all nice, and they look at you and they say, what are you doing with your hair? And it just kind of messes up your whole day. And so they didn't have to punch you, to hit you, they didn't have to do anything, but they said something, it went into the top, it stopped here, and it created a feeling on the inside. We've all had those moments where we're sitting and watching some TV, and you're watching TV, and you're watching something scary, and you can be sitting on your couch, you can be sitting in your house, the doors are locked, but you start to feel fear, and at that moment, if a Tupperware has to fall, you're going to jump. Why? Because what we take in at the top affects what's going on the inside here. Now, it's important for us to remember that, because what you take on the inside is going to come out. If coffee's in this cup, coffee's going to spill out. If Coke is in this cup, Coke is going to spill out. I meet so many young people and young adults, and even some grown adults who live their whole lives with all kinds of stuff in their cup. And what happens is that we hope that if we ignore it, it goes away. Imagine if I forget this cup with coffee here, and I go away for a week, and I come back and I see it, and I decide, what, I'm just going to ignore it. I'm just going to go away, and when I come back, I'll drink it. None of us would drink the coffee that's been sitting in this cup for the last, 5 or 10 or 20 days, because it didn't get better. It got better. It got worse. In fact, we would even get to the point where if you leave it long enough, it becomes toxic. I've met too many young people who are walking around with toxicity in their cup, and what we do is that we keep on taking more in, so we keep on pressing more and more and more down, and that is why there's this term that's on the increase in today's world. It's called, if you keep pressing down, press down, it's called depression. We keep on depressing, and so what we do is that we've got these people walking around with this toxicity, and so what we do is that if your parents, or mom and dad, if you ask your kids to wash the dishes and they see a cup that's full of coffee, Do you look at the coffee cup and say, oh, there's some old coffee in this cup, I'm going to throw the cup away? No, you never throw the cup away. And this is one of the big messages that I try to get across, is that you never throw the cup away, because any cup can be cleaned. No matter what's going on the inside, it can be cleaned. The first thing that we do if we're going to clean the cup is that we would turn it over. Now with a child or a person, you can't just turn them over and shake out the bad feelings. I did do it at one school. I found this little grade 1 and I shook them, and the bad feelings didn't come out, and the school never invited me back. But anyhow, but what happens is that I never done that, just for the record. But what happens is that you've still got to get it to go from year to year. And so what we do is that it must go from year to year. In other words, it must come from year to year. What do we do? One of the most healthiest thing today is World Mental Health Day. One of the best things that you can do for yourself and for your children and for your family is to encourage a culture of talking and not pressing it down. And as we talk, it's like it comes from here. And I don't know how it works, but I know it does. Somehow God has created it that as we speak, healing flows. And so what happens is that we start to talk about what we've gone through. And some of you have been in this place where you start to talk about something bad that happened. And the minute you start to talk, you feel like you're going to tear up, like you're going to cry. And then normally you stop talking about it. And the reason is that it means that it's still there. And as you're talking, it's coming out, and a healing can come. And so one of the main things that I've been encouraging people, and it's yielded so much results, find someone safe. Not everyone is safe. Some people will have your stuff out there on social media. Find someone safe. In the church community, there should be a pastor, there should be a counselor. But let's create a culture where it's not a bad thing to talk about the bad things. And as we talk, God is able to allow His healing to flow. And what happens is that when we can combine this with the most powerful force in the universe, the love of God, and when He is able to start pouring into our cup, and we're able to allow the ugly stuff to come out instead of just pressing it down, what happens is that we're going to be in a place where there is healing, there's freedom that flows, and so that is.
Well done. I can almost clap my hands there. You know, there's not, I must admit, there's not a lot of churches that invest into that type of ministry, but it's such a vital ministry.
Yeah.
Pastor Shaun Oliver, thank you so much for being with us today. What a wonderful work you do. You know, our prayers and our hearts, and thank you so much for honoring the invitation. I didn't know you do such huge work in God's kingdom, but you are really doing great inroads. Our compliments. Yeah.
Absolutely. If there was ever a program that needs to go viral, it's this specific program, especially with our kids and our families. So I really want to encourage all our families and our parents. Let's create a nice environment for our kids to grow, for families to really to be good parents. Those dynamics are so important for healthy families, and healthy families produce healthy societies, a healthy country. And so if ever, subscribe on this channel, but send this specific program around to parents that you know, to kids that you know, to the youth. Let's make this specific program viral. I think there's so much in here that we can learn, that we can grasp from. Thank you so much, Doc.
From us to you, thank you so much for tuning in again today. This is the Inside Show with Carl Hendricks, our wonderful host here this morning. With us here, Pastor Shaun, doing a great work in the kingdom of God, specifically with youngsters, so much needed. And we learn a lot about how to approach schools and how to approach young people today around evangelism in schools. God bless you. Take care. Have a great day and enjoy life.
Imagine if you have your vision as the car with the right team. Imagine how quick that vision will come into the footsteps. Something that was taking 5 years takes 3 months.
This morning is all about leadership and influence.